There's a lot of articles here pointing out that Trump is not doing as well with white people as Romney did. And that's not. I've been pointing this out from the start, right? Everyone said, Sanders was winning, or Sanders was losing, or sorry, they were saying Clinton was only winning because she won black voters. But if you look at the numbers, she won white voters in most of the states, right? Like a lot of those states, like yeah, she got like 90% of the black vote in those states, but she got like 55-60% of the white vote in those states. So the way it was being presented was very strange, and I don't know who was kind of like. Well, I mean, I do know it's the United States. It's how the media works. The media is very racist in the United States. It always has been. It's all about trying to find ways to split people apart, right? But I pointed this out very early on as well that Trump is not. Okay, so let's take a step back here. Okay, it's been clear for a while that Trump was actually not doing so well amongst white voters, and if you take a look back and you read my or watch my analyses, I point that out, right? It's like, wait a second, you know, all of these kind of demographic modelings, what they implied was that in fact, if you look at a lot of the polls, I'm convinced that Trump is actually being Trump's numbers are being exaggerated because the pollsters are inflating his numbers with white people, right? And something that all the pollsters do is they mess with the demographics a little. I don't think Trump is doing nearly as well with white people, even as the polling data is suggesting. But that was supposed to be the strategy from the Republican Party, right? That they just need to get more and more white people. I'm going to explain to you why that was stupid, okay? And I believe that the architect of this was Ann Coulter. Generally, when we hear Ann Coulter, we should think of stupid, right? And we shouldn't be surprised when her ideas don't work out because she's not very smart, okay? Something that I think is not being realized is that there were a lot of white voters in America that didn't particularly like Mitt Romney or the Republican Party, but really didn't like Barack Obama. They didn't like his name. They didn't like his skin color. They were told not to like his name. And they were told not to like his skin color. You told them to be racist, and then they were racist. Surprise. All of these projections and models that had the Republicans becoming the white party ended up missing the point, which is that you need a black party before you can get a white party in knee-jerk, thoughtless, ignorant response. If you're trying to build up racial resentment, you need to have a bad guy. You need to have an enemy, right? Or, frankly, you need to have a straw man before you can tear it down. And Obama was the perfect straw man. Everything that's wrong is a black guy running the country, blame everything on him. And so, of course, the other party gets, I don't know what it was like 70% of white people or something, right? In specific areas. I'm not stating that. I'm making a number up, but it was very high, right? It was like 60 or 70% or something like that, right? He did very well with white people because that's what the media did. Worked up all their frustrations against the black guy. It wasn't against the Democrats. It was against the black guy. And guess what? The black guy's not there anymore. Or he's not on the ballot anymore anyways. So it all falls apart. I think that the gains the Republicans made during Obama's presidency will evaporate once Obama is gone. I know a lot of people are looking at 2018 and saying the Democrats are going to get slaughtered. I don't think so. I think the Republicans are going to get slaughtered in 2018. And I think the reason they're going to get slaughtered is because there's not a black guy in the office anymore. And all of this voting that came up on racial resentment that was all based around, there's a Muslim that wasn't born in the country as president. Like, this is a catastrophe. We're on the brink of disaster. All that shit is gonna collapse. And all of a sudden, all these poor, ignorant, uneducated white people are gonna look at themselves in the mirror and say, holy shit, we're voting against our own interests. The race card is the thing that will blind them the most because they're raised their whole lives to be racist, right? The system enforces it, it pushes it down. And it's gone now. Barack Obama was the greatest gift that the right has ever received in the United States. And they did take advantage of it. Okay? State governors, state legislators, uh, they've got both houses right now. But the gift is being taken away now. And we're going to see that recede. This massive Republican swing is not a consequence of any core demographic fact. All the demographics are moving in the opposite direction. It's just a measure of how deeply racist the United States is. And we're going to see that. And I'm going to be a little bit fair here, okay? How deeply racist the older generations in the United States are, because I do think that it's a lot better, okay? And, maybe having a black man as a president made it a lot better for a lot of the younger generations. But these Republican sweeps all over the place, I believe very strongly that it is a consequence of having a black man at the top of the hierarchy. And just white resentment. And frankly, if he had gotten a lot done, if he had a really successful presidency, but I think people are going to look back, I think liberals are going to look back and they're going to say, is this worth it? Maybe we should try to be a little bit more tactical. And I'm going to tell you, I think the person that is going to have the best analysis of that and is going to agree the loudest is Barack Obama himself. I think that in time, he might not see it right now, but in time he's going to realize that whatever gains he made for, the way people think about, about how race can exist in the United States, it's 8 years in a black hole. The country just locked. Nothing happened. And I'm sorry, but I think the reason that nothing happened was because the white majority couldn't deal with it. Okay? Obama's trying to drag the country in one direction, and the country just said no. And it just sat down. Okay? And it's hard to move 300 million people with a noose around their neck and drag them, Let's go, let's go. They just sat. They just fell. Not all 300 million, but a couple hundred anyways. But then you look at the numbers in this election and you see, wait a second, there's less white people voting for the Republicans now? Well, yeah. Now white people have an option. They didn't have an option for the last 8 years. Or at least a certain subset of white people didn't have an option for the last 8 years. They would walk into the voting booth and they would see that their options were they can vote for America or they can vote for Kenya. Because that's the way it was framed in their head. And there was only one party that represented America. The other party represented, some foreigner with foreign values. And it's wrong. But it's real, right? So now that both candidates are white Americans, they can make a choice. Because voting for a black man with a Muslim name is not an option. But now they have one. So, of course you're going to see people bleeding back. And I really want you to get that point. Just a sec. Okay, so what I'm saying is you guys got to get the point about the presence of an option. Now that there's two options, of course people are going to bleed back. Like, necessarily it's going to swing white voters back, regardless of anything else. It didn't matter who the Republicans ran, and it didn't matter who they ran against. So long as both options are white, Romney's numbers with whites had nowhere to go but down. So all of this talk about, it was... I guess that's what happens when racists write racist policies. When racists write racist policies, their racism affects their opinion, and they end up blinded by their racism, and they can't understand what they're saying because everything's blinded, right? But that said, the whole point that I'm trying to make is that racist white liberals exist, and a lot of them voted for Mitt Romney, and we all need to deal with that. Clinton's going to get a swing, and you know who those people are going to swing by to? Who are? They're the deplorables.